Hello fellow fraggers, my name is Frag himself, and today we are taking a look at the top 10 best cards to main in Frag. I will not be talking about AI, this video is entirely going to be about how good a card is if you want to play them. The rankings are of course based on my opinion, but I also asked around the community to get other players' opinions to have a more accurate list. And now that that's said, let's get into it. In number 10 we have Lord VR. With the buff that he got recently, he will go in 10th place in my list. When you first look at this card, he might look like just an average fragger. He's got an average main fire, speed, and even HP. However, his ult is the reason why he's in this list. How it works is that you can copy the opponent's main fire with a 65% damage buff. This means that on average he can do a lot of damage when he's in his ult form. His ultimate ability also lasts very long and it has low cooldown, so you'll be in this phase a good portion of the game. You also get a health buff during this phase, which means that you deal more damage and you can also survive longer with a larger health pool. Lord VR is a very adaptable card as he can be very good on bunkers and in long ranges depending on who he copies. He's also a very good counters to a lot of cards as he can copy their main fire and therefore deal more damage than them. However, this card is not higher on this list because he's not as consistent as some of the other cards. He doesn't always have the right card to copy near him, and this may make his playstyle a little bit harder. Red Shadow is the new card that was just introduced to Frag, and people are still figuring him out. Some say that he's broken, and some say that he's not even good at all. For me and for now, he deserves his spot in 9th place in this list. Now why do I think that? His only weakness is his speed. He is pretty slow, but he can get a decent speed with his first frag power, which is a total game changer for him. He has good damage, and despite having small range, his ultimate ability makes it work. He can teleport to enemies from a long range, and this lets him deal damage in close ranges much more consistently. He's also very tanky, and his ultimate ability can give him an extra health buff, which is very helpful for a close range slayer. He can also deal a lot of damage on bunkers with his ultimate ability, but I would say he's mainly a good central card that you can use to get a lot of frags, and that will not necessarily go on bunkers that often. Regardless, I think he's a really good card that we should be careful of during this season. And from a new card to the other, we have Darius in number 8. I think it's fair to see why he's such a good card. He's incredibly tanky for a small hitbox, having as much health in the same level as Rolaf. He has decent range and his bunker damage is really good, with splash damage that makes him incredibly good in short ranges. In his toolbox, he also has an ultimate ability that gives him a little speed boost when you need it, or a damage and knockback burst that you can use to get out of bad situations. He's really a solid card in all fronts, one that can deal with any situation if you play him well, so he will go in 8th place. Despite 2 nerfs, Takeshi is still very much a meta card. He is worse than he used to be, but still has the tools to be on this list. First of all, his main fire is good. Some say that he doesn't have a good main fire, but I really don't understand why. He has good range, a good damage, and a headshot multiplier, which is always good. But that's not why most people play him. He has an absolutely crazy ultimate ability that can get you a lot of frags in a few seconds. He does crazy damage at once. His ultimate ability is especially good when you have his ability duration frag power. You're also going to be able to switch to him very quickly, use his ultimate ability and switch back to another card, and that's a very good strategy that can get you a lot of frags in a few seconds. He's good against a lot of cards because he's able to run to them and get rid of them very quickly, so that's why I think he's going to be in number 7 in this list. In number 6 we have Volcano. He is a very simple card. He's got damage, and damage. Without a doubt, he's the card that deals the most damage consistently. Recently, he got a buff that gave him some speed and additional damage, even though his damage was already crazy. To complement his damage output, he also has some good splash damage, which makes it very easy for him to get a lot of frags, because he doesn't need to aim that precisely. He can outdamage practically any card in the close and medium range, and he can get rid of a bunker in a few seconds. His ultimate ability is not that good, but it's okay to just get out of a few situations, for example against the Takeshi. His main weakness is that he is a sitting duck in the long ranges because he's not that tanky and he has a big hurt box. He's also not that hard to catch off guard and frag him quickly. Now those weaknesses are still not a big deal for him because of his huge damage and surprisingly good speed. So this is why he is in number 6. Now one of the hypest cards in the game, Duncan, is going into 5th place. Much like Darius, Duncan is pretty much good at everything. He has good range and damage with his main fire. Not to mention that his main fire gets even more crazy if you have his fire rate frag power, which increases his DPS by 30%, which is crazy. He is also very fast and he's fast while shooting, which lets him move very well. He's good on bunkers and on map control. And in addition to that, he has an ultimate ability that can stun enemies and deal even more damage to them, which is a very good tool in one-on-one situations. With this ultimate ability, he can also stop other ultimate abilities, which would be very hard to deal with otherwise. This ultimate ability still has a good learning curve to it, and Duncan is still not a very easy card to play, but when you learn how to master him, he can be a very good card. So don't underestimate him. Now Duncan might not be the easiest card to play in the game, but in number 4, we have a card that is even harder to play, Duality. I actually think that she's the hardest card to play in the game, because her main fires are both very hard to aim, but still very rewarding. Now why do I think that she deserves a spot on number 4? Well, first of all, she's very fast and tiny, which makes her very hard to hit for other cards. Her damage is pretty trash at the beginning of the game, but as you probably know, she has the ability to get stronger as the game continues, as long as you're able to mark and frag enemies consistently. So this means that when you kill enough enemies with her, she can get very strong, and she's able to 2 or 3 shot enemies very easily, or destroy bunkers in seconds. She also gets even faster and is impossible to get rid of at some point. Now of course, she has her weaknesses, which is early game, but in my opinion, if you play her well enough, her advantages far outweigh her weaknesses. Taking the bronze medal for the best card in the game, Arkhan has definitely the skills to earn his place in the meta. His main fire is honestly kind of insane. It's got very good range and at the same level can get rid of opponents in sometimes 2 or 3 shots. In addition to that, his ultimate ability gives him the opportunity to pick any card on the field, use his ultimate ability and get rid of him instantly without any problems, which makes him a very good counter to a lot of cards. His ultimate ability is also very good as just a movement option that you can use to escape some situations or to just move around the map a little bit faster. Despite that, he's not a card that is very much played because people haven't really taken the time to level him up. But honestly, I think he's very much viable in the meta right now, even though lots of people don't play him. Now in contrast, our next card is very much played in the meta, and it's Zap Girl. Even though she's the most played card in the meta right now, I would say, I don't think that she's the best card. Regardless, nobody can really argue that she's not a good card. Her main fire is just solid. As a high damage sniper, she can outrange practically any card in the game. She can also get rid of most cards, much like Arkhan, in 2 or 3 shots. But that's not even the best part. Her turrets are of course the best tool that she has. She can practically block a huge area of the map in 2 seconds. The cooldown for her turrets are ridiculously low, and they can deal a ton of damage to your opponent or their AI cards. Zap Girl also has some crazy frag powers, so she's straight up broken if you want to buy her frag powers. Even though she's gotten nerfed in the last update, it did practically nothing. People are still playing her very much, and I understand why. She is a very good card. And before we get into the number 1, let's talk about some honorable mentions. First one I want to talk about is Andromeda. Some of you are probably surprised that she's not in the top 10. She isn't higher because with the new meta, she kinda has been replaced. She's still a very powerful and consistent card, and good if you have her at a higher level, and even better with her fire rate frag power, but I still don't think that she has her place in the top 10, because frankly, at the same level, a lot of cards are just able to destroy her right now. Moving on to the most underrated card in the game, in my opinion, is Tankbot. He has everything good: damage, speed, and even HP. But still, he doesn't quite make it in this list because of his problems with a big hurt box, and he doesn't have that good of an escape option. And finally, a card I want to talk about is Crystal. She's a recently buffed card, and she has good speed, good damage, and an ability that can target any card on the ground, much like Arkhan, for a quick frag. She isn't quite in this list because she's not going to be able to carry you for the whole game. She's not that good on bunkers, and you might be stuck in a bad situation with her without her ultimate ability. But she's still a very good counter to a lot of cards because she's able to target them very well. And I'm hinting on Zap Girl because I think Crystal is pretty damn good against Zap Girl. You can still make her work very well, but I don't think she quite gets her spot in the top 10 right now. And finally, in number 1, I'm guessing some of you have guessed who she is. Oh yes, Stella. Honestly, I see no weaknesses on this card. She has incredible speed, damage, and her ultimate ability is straight up broken. Her main fire has good damage to get rid of AIs or tanks, and the homing stars are very good to kill those small cards that are not easy to kill for a lot of cards. And honestly, don't get me started about her ultimate ability. It can be used, much like Crystal, to take out any or many selected cards at any time, giving her the ability to beat every single card in the game when it comes to 1v1. She can also use it on bunkers to completely melt them. She survived 3 nerfs and will probably a few more. So Stella takes the crown as the best card in the game in my opinion. If you play her, of course. Her AI is kinda trash. Alright, that's it for today. So I just want to remind you that this video is widely based on my opinion, and my opinion is always changing. So I'd like to hear about who you think should be or should not be in this list. So, of course, if you enjoyed this video, you're free to drop a like, subscribe, and just drop a comment which helps out for the algorithm. And with that said, I'll see you in the next one.